Konnichiwa, Ohayo, Ganbawa. Welcome to the 1 week mark into learning Japanese using only Duolingo. And I am stressing only because I was very tempted to go somewhere else. I wanted to start by showing you how I actually knew how to read hiragana and a little bit of katakana. And I mentioned this in the week 0 video that I had used this app. It's called Write Japanese. And as you can see, I've gone through pretty much all the hiragana and gotten to the katakana. And let me show you how this works. So pretty much you practice, it reads them to you, you practice drawing them out. And by doing this, I was able to learn, well, I can't say just by doing this, but by doing this plus a couple other things on the side, pretty much just writing them down 5 at a time, 5 each day for a whole week. Eventually, I figured out all of hiragana. I will say katakana is more difficult than hiragana. But let's see where we were in Duolingo. So here we are in Duolingo, and there is good old El Búho, if you understand Spanish, over on the side, watching you as always. And as you can see, I didn't get very far into Japanese. I did about a lesson or two just to see what it was like before we started this challenge. I did do some of the learning hiragana and katakana lessons, but they were very random, didn't really have any sort of rhyme or reason to what they were teaching you, if nothing that was like overly urgent. As you can see, I'm already in the Pearl League here, and that's really because I've done other languages before, one of which, Spanish. I got all the way to Unit 16 before I kind of felt like it was a waste of my time. I did some German, and I enjoyed that one, and then I did also some French. This one for me was really difficult and ended up kind of just giving up after Unit 4. By day 2, I had finished Unit 1 entirely, and we were moving on to Unit 2. I didn't realize till much later that it was much shorter. So here we are, and the first thing here is back, which is seneka. So it's kind of leading off with some easy single words for you to use. By day 3, my confusion was starting to peak, as I really didn't understand why some words could have 2 different forms, and Duolingo does not like to explain the differences. It just kind of likes to throw them at you. One of the big examples is with the colors. So there are versions of the colors that just have the word, and some of them throw on an ending. Like this one is red. Normally it's aka, but in this situation it is akai, which doesn't explain it, but the comments do. Unfortunately, the comments are locked, so you can't really discuss it with people. It seems to be something from the past that they have moved on from, sadly. By day 4, we were almost done with Unit 2. And as you can see here in just a second, I was absolutely demolishing the competition as far as the leagues go. That's really because I was dedicating at least 30 minutes of my time, not so much in Duo time. I found that out later, that it calculates time a little differently, but I was just racking up the points. Here we are on day 5, and what is that? It's a sentence. I know. Shocking. Kind of. Yeah, it's more of just a longer word. It started to introduce like sentence kind of where you could have like nice to meet you, stuff like that. Not really much for conversation. You could say hello, nice to meet you, goodbye, and that would be the end of the conversation. But yeah, day 6 I actually did on a computer, which I will talk about here a little bit later. So there's no footage of that one just because I forgot to screen cap that. But, you know, I did that, and let's go on to day 7. And here we are on day 7, and it's really just more review again. I kind of was not happy about this. I'm recording this after the live segments here, and I can say that post day 7, once I hit day 8, it improved a little bit. We're going to have a different conversation by the end of week 2, but that's, no spoilers for that. So let my former live self explain what I felt after 1 week of Duolingo. So basically, 1 week into Duolingo got me into the middle point of about Unit 3. And basically, at this point, I don't know any more Japanese than I did back then. Well, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I know like 3 different ways to say nice to meet you. Not that I remember them, but I have them written down in my book here. So Duolingo recommends that you do up to 30 minutes. That's what I remember seeing when I first started. Of course, it only asks you that when you first start the whole program, not so much later on. It thinks 30 minutes is very committed, which if the ranked competition means anything, yeah, I would say 30 minutes is kind of like top level. I basically blew everybody else out of the water. So pretty much, in Unit 1, you learn some random words. Fair enough, okay. Unit 2, you're still doing pretty random words. And I was going through Unit 2 and I was thinking to myself, I'm not making very much progress here. I got to the end and I knew how to say most of the numbers, 1 through 9, except not 5 and not 8. They never once ever brought up the number 8 or the number 5. I wrote down here in my book, everything that came up, I wrote it down. That is something that Duolingo suggests. And I think the big problem is because Duolingo just does not explain very much. It really just throws things at you and hopes it sticks. So my big problem is, why are there 3 ways to say nice to meet you? If you click on the comments, it will tell you, but unfortunately there's no other way for you to find out, because Duolingo really doesn't care to tell you. So that's why I was so tempted to go to something else. And even YouTube videos, I accidentally watched a YouTube video that kind of explained some of it to me. Not a lot, but it kind of hinted as to, well, you say this for this certain situation, this level of formality. I was hoping that Duolingo eventually was going to tell me that sort of stuff, but where I left off, it never said anything like that. And from what I've used Duolingo in the past with other languages, it never really mentions rules. It just kind of says, here's what you do, don't ask why. I thought I had learned to say I want sushi. You have watashi, you have hoshi, you have sushi. I want sushi. So like I do with everything else, I threw it in the translator just to see if I was correct. And I was wrong. That is not how you say I want sushi. In fact, I don't really even remember how it was. But it had I think it said like, it had the word ga in the middle, which I understand is sentence particles. But I can't even use any of the stuff that I've got. And I've got 2 whole pages here worth of stuff I've written down, thinking that, okay, if I write it down, I can remember it. But honestly, I wouldn't even know. Like I said, I've got like 3 ways to say goodbye. I've got 3 ways to say nice to meet you. And I don't really understand which one goes where. So we're going to give it another week. And we're going to see where we are at the end of week 2. And then we're going to reassess if I need to change apps. Or just change styles. In the meantime, I've increased the amount of Spanish studying I've done. I've started joining these groups where you find other people who want to learn English but speak Spanish. So you speak to them in Spanish, they tell you what you did wrong, they speak to you in English, and you tell them what they did wrong. I've learned so much doing that in 3 days compared to what I did here in a week. Guess we'll find out by next Monday if Duolingo really ramps up how much they teach. I never used the online version on a computer before this, but I decided one day just to test it out, just to see the difference. And there's a big difference. Do I think it's better? In some ways, yeah, I think it's a lot better. But in other ways, it's not as convenient. I do a lot of my Duolingo studying on my lunch breaks or while waiting to go out or something like that. So I'll see you next time, and we'll figure out how far we made it.